sudden this ESPN person who's kind of gone down the funnel from homepage to Texas Rangers to certain things, now Texas Rangers to Yu Darvish, right? Who knows? That could be a Yu Darvish fan from Japan or a Yu Darvish fan in Dallas. We don't know, but there's signals that he could probably, that ESPN can create, and all of a sudden, you've created a certain audience package that is very limited in supply. So if you want to target a Yu Darvish fan, right, an advertiser or whatever, all of a sudden it becomes a little bit more, you know, I guess you can generate a better pricing on that.
Yeah, I think what needs to happen in programmatic, well, two things: simplicity, right, and visibility. So visibility is about being able to really, from one place, whether it's a unified dashboard across multiple devices, or even just seeing across multiple apps, being able to see those lines, right, and manage them. In terms of simplicity, you know, there are multiple mobile ad exchanges out there today, and if you know, hooking up with only one will only get you a piece of the pie because it's still extremely fragmented. And I think the industry still has quite a ways to go before, you know, from a single point you can access all of that stuff and have it be comprehensible. I mean, the level of like complexity that's involved in understanding all of these different dashboards and all of these different metrics and integration systems and so on is just, you know, you need a really big team to handle this. And I think it's there to be done. It's much a lot more simple.
Gotcha. And are there any new trends that are popping up that maybe we haven't heard about that you guys are seeing in the industry in regards to how to target people, different types of data that you can take a look at, different strategies to consumer?
Well, this is more like between us, but I heard a great story of, so, you know, we take very seriously in the United States the extent to which we're tracked, and cookies, there's actually legislation in the Senate right now about sort of how much data can be gathered about you without your consent, and these segments that are being created by accident and people like that. And, you know, we kind of get up in arms about this stuff. I heard about a couple of startups in China the other day that literally plug directly into the internet backbone and do their targeting from that.
Well, that's not too far off from what like Verizon's trying to do, right? So
Well,
it's
but
like carrier targeting.
But as a user, right, like on mobile, mobile's under way more scrutiny than online, right? I
Yeah.
mean, as a user online, like you really don't even have any idea what your cookies are. I mean, Facebook can track what websites you go to after you sign out of Facebook. You could never do that on mobile. I mean, as a user, on mobile, none of the targeting is done with personally identifiable information. So if you know I'm basically this, you know, encrypted number, like, does that matter to me in my own privacy if the actual advertising itself gets better? You know, am I seeing, you know, creative for products that I'm actually interested in? It's an interesting kind of philosophical debate. I mean, how much do they know about me if I'm anonymous to them?
I will say this real quickly, for any of the publishers or app developers or whatnot, if you can, create a registration law. And at the very minimum, collect their email address, their age, gender, and if you're not collecting that long,
Yeah,
there's
and this is something that, you know, the premium non-gaming guys do, you know, quite a bit,
Yeah.
right? For the gaming developers, they're kind of subject to that Facebook login,
Yeah.
and you can't share that Facebook data with third party.
Yeah, and if you collect that first party data is so valuable, and then you can start creating, you know, hashed emails and work with some of the other data partners, and all of a sudden you've got some really strong data that you can go target against.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's this concept called progressive disclosure, which is basically that, you know, as you kind of get someone through the funnel, you get a little bit more information about them. It could just be an email, or it could be another marker on them, but, you know, you get more and more on them. So I think that, you know, that or some kind of registration, but basically you're trying to identify a low friction route. How you're getting someone in without, like, you know, a little foreplay, right? You know, how do you get them in without like making them buy immediately? Because that's just, it's unrealistic, and I think that a lot of marketers still have that perspective of, did they buy or did they not buy? Well, no, but maybe they subscribed to a newsletter, or maybe they searched, one of our clients at UCLA Health, maybe they searched for a physician, or they requested an appointment, or they did a form submission. These are all, verifiable leads, and they need to be defined, as a lead. I will speak very quickly about some of the things that we do, not necessarily state of the art, but just I want to make sure that you guys get a general sense of, the science here. We do targeting in a variety of different ways. We do, there's one company I think that does it the best, it's called Quantcast, and they do lookalike modeling. And so it's an inference-based model, and you get the site that's, your site is pixeled, so you got landing page, a secondary page, tertiary page, you kind of see like the path that they're going down, you kind of can infer a segment or segments of that, and then you go find users on the web that look like who just funneled through your site. So that's lookalike modeling. We do something a little spooky through Yahoo called email domain retargeting. So it basically reads your mail, and it can see we do.
Who has Yahoo mail?
like one of our clients is nutritional supplements, vitamins. It's like, so for prenatal, we would see if the user got anything from Nature Made or from any of these other brands, then we could go out there somewhere in the Yahoo network, which is much more extensive than you think it is, and we would find them and give them a retargeting ad. We work a lot with a company called Rocket Fuel, which is they're buying inventory on an open exchange, and they're putting an artificial intelligence on top of it. And we're kind of like chipping away at what that is. So we'll do this, but take that out. Do this, take that out. So we're trying to figure out a little bit more about it, but this is what we call black box, and it's pretty darn good. We were talking earlier about it. One of our clients is the Smith Center of Performing Arts in Las Vegas. It's like the Staples Center, and we would do one show, like we did Book of Mormon, and we had like a great conversion rate where for every dollar that we spend in media, we got back somewhere around 50 in ticketing revenue. And then like the next show, which wasn't as hot as Book of Mormon, but it followed the campaign footprint of Book of Mormon, it did even better. And we had another show that was like even worse, but it did even better because it was artificial intelligence. It was learning from itself, and it's spooky.
Was that desktop?
Desktop and mobile.
So how were you able to track the back-end conversion of that ticket sale?
So we had a mobile-enabled site that we had
You drove into that.
full attribution on the ads to both sites. And there's more, but there's a lot of interesting things, and these aren't necessarily new, but I'm seeing them getting a lot better over the last few years, and that's the good part.
One thing that's happening just recently is deep linking. So I don't know if you guys are familiar, but basically now you can run an ad that will link directly into an app if it's installed on your phone. So the use case where you have to kind of cookie a website, it'll be possible to do that in an app as well, which will help a lot.
Nice. Because at this time, I'd like to open it to actually the audience. So,
that was scripted.
So since we're talking about conversion, I actually market about 25 mom and pop businesses. And do you think there'll ever be like a way to track Facebook advertisement conversions? Because right now, currently, there is nothing. There's only data-driven things that we see, but we want to know literally how many likes. What does a like convert to in dollar cents? Do you guys see any conversion?
Well, I think the industry as a whole is definitely moving in the direction of transparency, and that will eventually, hopefully, force Facebook to move in that direction as well.
Okay.
There's lots of ways to track conversion for local advertising. I don't know specifically on Facebook.
And I would just add to that, Facebook wants the merchants to sell on Facebook, wants you to create that registration or whatever you're doing so that you don't ever leave the walls of Facebook. So that's by design. And so if you abide by those terms, you can track it. It's just that you have to invest in all of that. You have to have a Facebook developer or an approved developer. There's a lot of things you have to go through if you think that Facebook is, for that you know, Facebook is really not. Facebook's the kind of experience. I mean, I'll even ask the audience, or like, raise your hand, who's been on Facebook? I'm sure it's, you know, we know what that number is, but you know, Facebook's like a wandering kind of experience, and so it's really not this thing for selling and for conversions. It's just not about that. You know, it's low commitment, like, share, comment, done. You know, I took about 3 seconds. That's about as much as I'm going to give you. You know, so you might reconsider why you're so beholden to doing this on Facebook.
Could you each name a brand whose mobile advertising you think is really smart, and why? And in particular, one where it was effective on you. You actually were exposed to it and you took the brand's desired action and watched the video to the end and clicked through, etc. Can you name a couple of them?
I mean, I love the Red Bull ad campaigns, but I happen to be a sucker for extreme sports.
Yeah, I mean, I would, you know, one was, you know, the one that Arjun mentioned with Nike. They just have fantastic creative. I think the other area that's really interesting to watch is kind of the convergence of the brand advertiser and the performance advertiser, and you see these two mediums truly converging. I think it's happening, you know, more so on the mobile gaming user acquisition play. So seeing, you know, companies like Supercell, companies like King, now advertising on TV, right? And that's a pure brand awareness play, but they're also doing hyper targeting, hyper, you know, tracking of ROI with their performance campaigns during, you know, pre-TV, during campaign, post-TV, and seeing how that impacts their acquisition. So I think looking at advertisers that are now combining both mediums is really interesting. We're seeing it as well with brands, you know, driving the point of sale, whether it be a regional QSR, like a Jack in the Box, Carl's Jr., those guys do it quite a bit.
One thing that I enjoyed as far as like a cross-screen experience recently was with ESPN and Volkswagen GTI, based on all the World Cup commercials. So I remember just watching World Cup and I see a GTI commercial on.
Wasn't Adriano Lima that used?
and then I'm just on ESPN on my handset and I see a GTI ad unit. And then speaking of automotive, I remember having just a Facebook conversation with a couple of my friends on, I forgot what car it was, there was some car, and like a day later I'm looking at my feeds and there's a car advert and I was like, perfect.
That's the stuff that you don't mind.
You Google Kia.
Right, exactly, yeah. No, it was just like, I don't know what it was. It's like one of my friends, he's I used to work at Edmunds.com, and he was an old colleague and he's an independent consultant. And he's been traveling. I was like, what have you been doing? He's like, oh, I was at this one particular dealership in South Dakota. And it's like, what dealership was that? And it was like an automotive conversation. And I'd never seen an automotive ad. And then a day later, I was like, wait, there's not all that. Perfect. It's kind of cool.
I mean, my example is not like a thrilling example, but I play Scramble. Yes, I'm a 35-year-old soccer mom. It's I'm highly addicted to the game, and I've got now like virtual friends that I compete with and stuff. But what I thought, and I like simple experiences. These things that are just so blown out. It's like again, overworked. So Dunkin' Donuts is this thing where they this whole idea of real-world rewards. I think makes sense. Like mobile is like. That's your buddy, you've got mobile with you all the time, and so the idea of giving real-world rewards, I think, is a huge fertile area in mobile. And you're playing, and there's an interstitial piece, and it pops up. It says, "Play today's daily challenge and get free tokens." Okay, I'm a sucker for free tokens, so you do it, and you just basically have to find very basic words like latte or robust or whatever that was, and it got me. I'm spelling the words. I'm now, singing your language, Dunkin' Donuts, and I thought it was really clever because it was just enough to not be annoying, but it made me remember the ad and the brand, and it gave you something. And so it kind of, it wasn't a disruptive in a bad way experience. It was disruptive, and the trade-off worked.
And now you can start searching for those Dunkin'